There was a time when Pokimane was untouchable. The golden child of Twitch, the wholesome poster girl for live streaming, the one streamer who seemed safe from the kind of scandals and controversies that plagued everyone else. For years, it was almost impossible to criticize her without facing a wall of fans ready to defend her every move. But now, that safety net has completely disappeared. Instead of being seen as Twitch's golden star, Pokimane has become the internet's favorite example of a creator who destroyed their own reputation. Not because of one major scandal, but because of a long list of tone-deaf decisions and arrogance that pushed her audience away. Pokimane's downfall is unique because it wasn't a sudden explosion. She didn't get caught in some career-ending scandal overnight. Instead, it's been slow, painful, and embarrassingly public. And the worst part is that every step of the way, she seemed completely oblivious to how her actions looked from the outside. The first cracks in her image appeared when Pokimane started weaponizing copyright strikes against smaller creators. For someone who built her career off reacting to other people's content, the hypocrisy was impossible to ignore. YouTubers who made critical videos about her suddenly found their content disappearing, not because they broke rules, but because Pokimane didn't like what they had to say. On Twitch, that kind of power move might have been seen as standard, but on YouTube, it was a death sentence to her reputation. The internet values free speech and criticism, and the idea of one of the platform's biggest stars silencing smaller voices didn't just make her look thin-skinned. It made her look like a bully. But Pokimane didn't stop there. If anything, she doubled down on the image that people already hated. When criticisms about her parasocial fanbase began to grow, instead of handling it with humility, she mocked the very fans who had built her career. The term simp, which had already been swirling around Twitch culture, became synonymous with Pokimane's fanbase. And instead of finding a clever way to flip the narrative, she leaned into it in the worst possible way. Joking about parasocial fans can be funny in small doses, but when your entire audience feels like you're laughing at them instead of with them, it becomes corrosive. It made Pokimane look arrogant, and arrogance is the one thing audiences never forgive. Things only got worse when she began banning words and memes from her Twitch chat that made her look bad. If you mentioned simp or referenced her controversies, you were instantly banned. Instead of addressing criticism, she tried to erase it. This gave her community a cult-like feel, not the fun kind, but the kind where everyone knows there are rules about what you can and can't say. And on the internet, censorship always backfires. Instead of protecting her brand, it painted her as insecure, someone who couldn't handle even the most basic jokes at her expense. But if there was a single moment where her reputation really started to collapse, it was her hypocrisy with Twitch rules. While smaller streamers were being banned left and right for minor infractions, Pokimane seemed untouchable. She could play copyrighted content on stream without punishment. She could toe the line of Twitch's rules without facing the same consequences as others. To her fans, this looked like favoritism. To her critics, it looked like Twitch bending over backwards to protect their golden child. And when audiences realize that the playing field isn't fair, the resentment builds fast. Then came the sponsorship issues. Pokimane had built her career partially on sponsorships, aligning herself with brands that saw her as a clean, safe face for gaming. But when G Fuel, one of her biggest sponsors, suddenly dropped her, it sent a shockwave through her community. While the official reasons weren't made clear, the internet didn't need an explanation. The optics were simple. If even her sponsors didn't want to be associated with her anymore, maybe her brand wasn't as safe as everyone once thought. And yet somehow, the biggest damage to her reputation didn't come from copyright strikes, Twitch hypocrisy, or even sponsorship drama. It came from cookies. Yes, cookies. In late 2023, Pokimane launched her own cookie brand, hoping to cash in on her massive following with a product line that looked like a safe, family-friendly business venture. But almost instantly, the internet tore it apart. The cookies were overpriced, poorly marketed, and seen as an obvious cash grab. For years, her critics had been calling her fake, accusing her of using her fans for money, and the cookie brand was basically proof of concept. The backlash was brutal. Memes circulated about her being out of touch, her audience mocked the product relentlessly, and the launch became less of a business milestone and more of a public humiliation.
When people are like, oh my god, $28 for cookies? It's 4 bags. That's $7 a bag. I know math is hard when you're an idiot, but like if you're a broke boy, just say so.
The irony is that Pokimane didn't need to do any of this. She was already successful, already wealthy, already set for life. But instead of protecting her image, she chipped away at it, controversy after controversy, until people who once defended her were now laughing at her downfall. And that's really what makes Pokimane's story so fascinating. She didn't get cancelled by some massive scandal. She wasn't exposed for a crime. She simply destroyed her own brand by being tone-deaf, arrogant, and hypocritical in front of millions of people. Today, Pokimane is still streaming. She's still active online. But the respect she once had is gone, replaced by an endless cycle of mockery and criticism. Every time she tries to reinvent herself, the internet pulls her back into the spotlight for all the wrong reasons. And maybe that's the point. Pokimane isn't over because she disappeared. She's over because she's still here, and nobody takes her seriously anymore. Her downfall isn't complete, and maybe it never will be, but the girl who was once Twitch's golden child is now a reminder that on the internet, being untouchable never lasts forever.